Welcome. In this video, we'll be discussing the finer points of the installation process of large format tiles. The demand for large format tiles has seen a rapid increase in recent years, making it essential to ensure proper training for installation. In this video, we'll delve into the techniques and requirements set by TC&A and Brekhus Tile for successful large format tile installation. Firstly, it's crucial to highlight that tile and stone are durable materials that should last a lifetime. However, when issues arise, they are often linked to problems with the substrate or the installation method. Therefore, understanding the process and products that will be used during the installation is paramount. Always be sure to reference the TC&A handbook for proper installation techniques as it relates to the product you'll be installing. It is good practice to always read the instructions provided by the manufacturer of the products that you're going to be used. Additionally, check for specific project requirements set by the architect or general contractor. Always consult with your site superintendent to ensure that you have the correct products and materials for the project. In a process driven by procedures, each step relies on the successful completion of the preceding one. And this holds true for tile setting as well, where each step plays a crucial role and none can occur independently of the others. Often, you'll be installing on top of existing surfaces. It may be that another trade has laid the foundation on which you'll be installing your tile. Whatever the case is, it is always a good idea to check for leveling tolerances on the substrate prior to installation. For any large format tile installation, per TC&A, a variation of no more than 1/8 inch over a 10-foot span is allowed. As defined by TC&A, any tile with one edge greater than 15 inches is considered to be a large format tile. Checking these leveling tolerances can be achieved with a 10-foot straight edge or a level. Shims can also be a helpful tool used to gauge variances in the substrate. By indicating these deviations in the substrate, you will be able to later add additional mortar, ensuring proper coverage and adhesion. Clearly marking out these low spots acts as a great visual and will help identify problematic areas when it's time to apply the additional mortar. With the surface checked and confirmed to be true and within tolerance, we can now move on to our next steps. First of which will be the application of the uncoupling membrane. The uncoupling membrane acts as a protective barrier, absorbing and distributing stress caused by movement in the substrate. This is crucial, especially in areas where the surface might expand, contract, or experience other structural changes. By providing a buffer between the substrate and the tile, the uncoupling membrane guards against cracks and ensures the integrity of your tile installation. Proper bonding of mortar to the tile and adhesion of the uncoupling membrane to the floor are equally important. Cleaning the concrete floor prior to installing the uncoupling membrane is vital to prevent bonding issues. Always use a water-based sweeping compound to remove foreign contaminants, followed by a clean sponge and water to eliminate remaining particulates. It is recommended that you use each side of the sponge once. After each use, be sure to clean the sponge in a bucket of clean water. Try to minimize foot traffic over the clean surface and be prepared to re-clean affected areas if necessary. It is not recommended to have any foot traffic over the clean surface. Having proper signage or other measures in place to reduce foot traffic will help with having to not repeat this process. There will be times when this is unavoidable. If you do encounter this scenario, be sure to repeat the process of cleaning the affected areas with a sponge. Now, let's discuss keying in the mortar. To achieve a strong bond between the substrate and the uncoupling membrane, you will want to key in the mortar to the concrete prior to rolling out the membrane. The term keying refers to the process of applying a thin layer of mortar using the flat side of the trowel. A fair amount of pressure is needed to properly apply a good coat during the keying process. Hearing the scrape of the trowel against the surface is a good indicator that you have applied the correct amount of pressure. Once the key coat has been applied, You can now begin to trowel out additional mortar. It is always recommended that when troweling, you will have your ridges running in the same direction. With the mortar troweled onto the floor, you can now proceed to lay down the approved membrane. Brekhus requires the use of a 50-pound roller during this step. The process of rolling out the membrane is to ensure complete bonding and collapse of any air bubbles between the surface and the membrane. Always follow product guidelines for proper installation, and always check to see if there is any overlap needed of the applied membrane. Be sure and maintain safety procedures that were in place during the cleaning of the floor. These precautions should stay in place until the mortar has completely cured. Always adhere to the recommended cure times specified on the product packaging to ensure optimal results. Ensure consistent mixing ratios and techniques, adhering strictly to the TCNA guidelines and product specifications. At Brekhus Tile, we recommend the use of a helical paddle with a mixing drill to not exceed 300 RPMs. Mixing of the mortar with speeds greater than 300 RPMs lends itself to the possibility of an excess of air bubbles being whipped into the mixture. This excess of air bubbles can cause accelerated cure times of the mortar. Improper mixing procedures may not be immediately noticeable, but can lead to issues post-installation. Our attention to detail at Brekhus Tile Stone emphasizes the importance of adhering to procedures and seeking clarification when needed. It only takes a few minutes to ask a question, whereas improper installation techniques can lead to timely and costly repairs. Considering the nature of large format tiles, proper preparation of mortar and application technique is crucial. Ensure cleanliness of both the surface of the uncoupling membrane and the tile itself, allowing time for all moisture to evaporate on both surfaces before moving on to the next step. We will now repeat the process of keying in the mortar to both substrate and tile to ensure proper bonding. Here, you can see that the application of mortar was improperly applied and that resulted in a failure in bondage to the installed tile. The exposed tile shows that the trowel direction of the mortar is inconsistent. Pulling these tiles up was done with little effort. Improper mixing ratios of this mortar bed was made evident once the uncoupling membrane was removed. Here, there is little to no adhesion between the membrane and the mortar bed. Swirling the mortar causes voids where the tile may not bond to the substrate. These voids can result in cracked tile and bond failure under normal use, but especially under point load or impact. In addition to impact and heavy loading, tiles set without proper mortar coverage are more likely to fail under many conditions. On the other hand, this tile was installed with the correct technique. As you can see, the tile is coming up in small pieces and required a significant amount of effort to pull up. This is a good indicator that the bond between the tiles and the floor was sufficient. You can also see the trowel grooves are consistent and continue in the same direction. For large format tile, glass tile, natural stone, or any tile set on exterior surfaces, back buttering the tile is recommended. Using the flat side of the trowel to get an even coat of mortar and fill all the spaces in the surface. Combing the mortar onto the surface in straight lines and in the same direction on both tile as well as the substrate. Extending the trowel ridges all the way to the edge of the tile and maintaining consistent thickness of the mortar when applying can be accomplished by always keeping the trowel at a 45-degree angle. Complete coverage of the mortar is needed to avoid failure points in the tile post-installation. According to the American National Standards Institute and TCNA Handbook, tile requires a minimum of 80% mortar coverage in interior applications, 95% for exterior and wet environments. Natural stone requires at least 95% coverage in all areas. Brekhus Tile recommends full coverage for all large format tiles, regardless of application. There are a few methods tile setters use when collapsing ridges between the set tile and the substrate mortar. While it is recommended to shift the tiles from side to side, Brekhus strongly encourages that a walk-off is performed on any large format tiles. When performing a walk-off, you will start in the center of the tile and slowly walk to the edge, doing so in both directions. Propagating from the center in all directions, you will repeat this process till you have covered the entire area of the tile. In this demonstration, you can clearly see by the use of a transparent tile that the walk-off process is an effective way to collapse almost all of the ridges and remove nearly all of the trapped air. This process may take just a little bit more time than the alternative methods, but as we can see here, it is an extremely effective way of securing the tile and maximizing bond between the surfaces. There is no designated amount of time that this process takes, and it will vary depending on the size of the tile. In our demonstration, the process took just a little over 2 minutes. While 2 minutes may seem like a lifetime in the field, these 2 minutes could have just saved hours of costly repairs down the road. During the installation process, you may encounter times where proper bondage is not achieved. When this occurs, you may be required to pull up the tile and reapply sufficient mortar. As long as you're working within the allotted cure time, you will be able to simply add additional mortar to the surface or surfaces that are lacking coverage. You will want to notch in the additional mortar with the same ridge pattern as before, maintaining a desired ridge height by using the same techniques. If it is the case that the mortar has started to set up, you will need to fully clean the surface and reapply a new batch of mortar. In conclusion, a well-executed installation following these best practices minimizes the chance of failure and ensures the longevity of large format tile installation. Thank you for watching, and remember to always prioritize precision throughout the process of installation.